Hey guys, Matt Bell here with another Improv for Violinists lesson. Last week we were talking about triads and using versions of triads to create some stability in our solos. This week we're going to take a jazz technique called sidestepping, and we're going to combine that with triads to show you how I wrote that last lick in that solo I just played for you. Don't worry, if you don't remember it, I will show you the whole thing here in just a second. Sidestepping, what is that? In jazz, we use sidestepping. It's called sidestepping. You just play a half a step away from the key that you're in. So if you're in G, you can play something either in G sharp or in G flat, F sharp. You'll play part of a lick out of the key, and then you come back into the key, and it just creates a little motion. They will use that a lot of times in jazz if they're sitting on a long vamp. If they're just sitting on a chord for a long time and there's not a lot of motion there, you can create motion by stepping out of the key and then stepping back in. Let me show you an example. Suppose I'm using a G major scale as a line, right? So what if I take those first four tones, leave them in G, and instead of playing the next four in G, I play those same tones up a half step from where they would be. And then come back. So together. So that just sounds a little jazzier than just a straight G scale, right? Okay? A common way that I use this technique, and it's a little more obvious than that, that's just sort of sound like a sort of a cool line. My technique tends to be a little more obvious. I will play a lick, and then I'll repeat it up a half step. And then come back and do it again. Or however I play that, okay? So in order to make that a little more stable even than what that was, we can use triads, okay? So I'm going to play a C arpeggio, and then, so keep in mind that you don't have to use a triad for the key you're in. Just because I was using a C arpeggio there doesn't mean that I'm necessarily soloing over C. So the C arpeggio we'll use the stability of that to play a little bit out. The C sharp goes even more out, and then the C, as it comes back in, sounds in comparison to where the C sharp was. Does that make sense? So that's creating tension and release, okay? So here's the lick that I talked about at the beginning. It was at the tail end of that solo. I'll play it here for you again. Okay? So the chords underneath are changing every 4 beats. The first 4 beats is a D chord. Then it goes to G. Then it goes back to D. So I wanted to create an ascending line. So I looked at my extended arpeggio for D and G chords to sort of see where can I create this chromatically ascending line across a 1 chord and a 4 chord. So if I look at a D, I look at a D arpeggio, right? But I'm going to go ahead and use D minor 7 for reasons that we'll see here in just a second. D minor 7. And if I start on the 3, that's really just an F major triad, right? And I said sidestep that up. But that really just shifts the sound from like a D minor 7 sound over D to almost like a D major 7 sound over D. It's got an F sharp and a C sharp in it. So then the triad itself makes that A sharp work well enough because it does give some stability to the fact that it's in a triad. You wouldn't generally play an A sharp over a D major, but the use of the triad bails you out a little bit. So we start with the 3, the 5, and the flat 7. And then come up another half step that gets you to the G chord. So I'm right on it. And then I can sidestep it up again. okay, which takes me to G sharp major, which is pretty fraught with tension, but then I resolve that to an A, which is the D chord has come back underneath again. So we're over D, G, and then D again. I'll play the open A. So that's like tons and tons of release. It's the 5 over that chord. So lots of release. So you get away with a lot when you're creating an ascending or a descending line. People's ears really like patterns. Deep at heart, we're all mathematicians. So we really like patterns, whether they're chromatic patterns or whole tone patterns or diminished patterns, and we'll get into all that later. So they're willing to forgive a weird note or two if the trade-off is a nice chromatic pattern, which is made even more stable with some triads, okay? So your homework this week is to experiment with sidestepping triads, both down and up. They don't have to be root triads either. Have some fun with it. Think about patterns. Don't be afraid to play a sour note. I'm going to come back to this, and we're going to play this solo again. Let's see if we can find this. Here we go.